Well, I thought if anyone is joining us for their first episode today and is kind of wondering what the narrative has been so far in our previous episodes, I would say the story so far.
I don't know. After hearing that, I want to disappear. That
Well,
was,
take this. This is a proper dose.
yeah. I think we need to bury that joke under soil and dirt. Yep, the story so far. So, what inspired me? I guess I enjoyed going through the 4 year strong discography, and story so far has kind of a similar sound, similar vibe, I guess. Same kind of high energy, relatively positive, upbeat kind of stuff, and
Mhm.
so I just kind of wanted to keep that going, and that was really what prompted me to choose them. The history with the band, I know I had heard about them when you were in college, when you and I were in college. I knew the name. Maybe I heard a song here or there. I only really kind of got into them. Was it maybe 2018? I
Mm.
think it was. I saw this tour. I need to start writing down stuff like you do, but it was this like wannabe like Warped Tour ish revival kind of thing. So I saw Story so far and got into listening to them a bit, and then listened to them a lot in 2020. So yeah, that's my story so far with the story so far.
Yeah, for me, I was introduced in college, and I really liked Rome. I think that stuck out right away. But then I never really like dove deep into their discography. I'd always sort of like just pay attention to the lead singles.
Mhm.
And I know Tyler didn't like them at the time, and I think that I am very influenced by him. So I felt like uncool listening to music that he didn't like because I wasn't an individual until later in life. Some may say I'm still working on it. My only neat story was that I saw them at Riot Fest when they were like an up and coming band. I had no idea who they were, one of those small stages. But I don't even really remember the performance. I just remember for my own log, as you mentioned, I have to like catalog things. I was like, well, who is this
Yeah.
band so I can write it down? And it was them. So that's cool. Otherwise, I think my main feeling of them as a whole, which I don't even know like what album to put this under. I feel like it for me it applies to their whole discography. Is it's really enjoyable stuff, but it all feels kind of like one note. So to me, it's great background music. I can work during it. No song aside from the very few like on each record jump out at me. Like I'm not gonna be able to recall a song by its name. And so maybe if you're a bigger fan and you listen to them more, it's maybe more evocative. And I'm also not a lyrics guy, so I'm not like having associations with that. For me, it's like it's the same thing again and again and again. And if you dig it, it's good, but it's not like it keeps it from being extra special for me. That's
Yeah.
kind of
No,
them
no,
for me.
I definitely feel that. I think that's a very fair criticism. Like, I definitely like this band, but they are a very samey band across a lot of things.
Exactly. It just
Not
kind of
just
feels like
in,
it's their thing, and I almost don't want to knock them for it because it's like they're good at it, but
yeah,
it's a different category than like a Fall Out Boy or whomever. For me, it was like the songs have identities, they breathe. Yeah.
yeah. I'll put it. I'll put it. I'll go into a little bit more detail about this later. But basically,
Yeah.
it's like it's not just that they have one style and they keep doing albums in that one style. It's like the individual songs on the albums tend to all kind of sound like each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well said.
yeah.
Yeah, you can
So,
definitely notice growth over the time. Yeah.
oh
But we
yeah,
can jump right in. Yeah.
but it's very much like a kind of a band like AC/DC, where
Hmm.
it definitely stays within the same wheelhouse. But with that in mind, we'll go ahead and start with the Under Soil and Dirt album. And I guess I might be a little more familiar with the band than you are, so I'll start these off, and you can
Yeah.
offer you can give the hot takes this time. I don't
Excellent.
have any.
I also have
I
some
really like
tree
this.
pollen allergies flaring up, so
Oh,
you may
God.
notice me dabbing my eyes, and I don't want you to feel like I'm crying at your poor reviews.
Okay,
That's
no, I
what
thought
it's
you were
going to be.
crying at like Parker Cannon's multiple breakups that he's obviously gone through.
Yeah.
That's doing the fire
Yeah.
every
My
song on every
association
album.
with this time, which is not going to matter to anyone listening, is that Ryan really liked them, and he was such a little emo boy. And so I have one of my notes here is sad boy lyrics, not really based on fun stuff. Which
Yeah,
is typically what I associate my pop punk, and maybe that's why it's like I'm not latching onto stuff. I
yeah,
don't care about your
yeah.
emo
So
stuff.
So like this band, and especially with this album, it's a band I like that started a trend I don't like, which is pop punk turning into this kind of mopey, shouty, angsty, angry kind of thing. Whereas before, like, you know, bands like Blank and Some and everything, there was a lot of fun stuff, and even the angry stuff had a different vibe to it. It wasn't like it was a little more melodramatic and a little more kind of theatrical, and this feels a little more real, I guess. But it's this band comes out of the gate swinging. This first album, it reminds me of the first the first major label album by 4 Year Strong, in that it gives me the vibe of like being at a small stage at Warped Tour, and you see this band come on, and like suddenly like more and more people start showing up to the stage, and then like everybody starts watching, and it even starts the way like it starts out with this little kind of teaser track that sounds like something they would start off a live album
show with,
yeah, and then so it feels like you're at a show, and then it just has a bunch of really good songs. I really like everything from the first track up through like Mount Diablo is classic. The last 4 songs not as great, but they're still really good. And there's a lot of good variety here that I feel like is, well, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but a bit lacking on the next album.
No one's heard this album yet.
Yeah, so there's some good faster stuff like Quicksand and High Regard, and then there's some slower stuff like Mount Diablo, or like the final song. I think it's Closure. Is that the ballad, or is it Placeholder? I have a hard time remembering. There's one where this body's closed until further notice. Anyway,
Closure.
That song, it feels like a good variety, and they really just came out of the gate with not only a strong debut, but one that like has their own kind of unique style. Like I listened to the EP they did before this once, and it's just kind of a fairly boilerplate kind of pop punk with a little bit of heavier screaming, but it's not like anything super noticeable. And then just all of a sudden, like boom, they've kind of defined their style here. I think this is just a good front to back album. High energy most of the way through. Good sing along stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's a solid debut. I mentioned it, energetic, and it really feels like the next generation of pop punk. So I think to your credit, like saying that they've kind of carved out their own style and it was really copied. I'm not that much of a historian of, I want to say modern pop punk, but it's 15 years ago now. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I feel like it was coming out around the same time as like Real Friends and Neck Deep. I'm just like casually aware of them.
Yeah.
But it does feel like we haven't really evolved much past it yet. Of the style, the shouty. I remember that was one of Tyler's main critiques that I found that I agree with, was that like the dynamics when everything's at 11, it's tough, and I feel like they maybe got better at it in future albums, but here there's not a lot of dynamic shifts. We're just kind of at it. So it's like, if that's what you want, it's great, but maybe not as easy to return to. The one thing I also noticed a lot is not a ton of harmony. For this first album, I feel like they would have really benefited from layering his vocals a lot more. And that's I love Rum. Rum is such a great opener, a real opener to the album. You can just, hard to listen to it without picturing yourself jumping in the pit.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I can just see like the small group of people up at the front who all like already this band are like singing along. There are always those kids.
Or at the time, it's like you've sat through the 10 songs you don't really know, and then they're like, "All right, we're at the story so far."
Yeah, I just always remember, like, and no matter how obscure the band you would see, kind of back in that era, there was always that one kid who knew like all the lyrics. Like even if it was some like super like noodly like metalcore band where they didn't even have normal song structures, they'd be like that one kid who's like screaming at every lyric. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this. Yeah. Okay. All right. On to the next album. What you don't see. This one. So again, I like all their albums. I like this album, but this one fell into the same category as like that. By any way, shape, or means, or the I can't remember the name.
In some way, shape, or form.
In some way, shape, or form, yeah. The For Your Strong album, where it's like I would never really like go back to it, and so every time that happens, I try to kind of figure out why. And after listening to like the whole discography front to back on a road trip, I finally realized this is like their most samey album. It's very samey. Most of the songs are fairly mid-tempo. Even the fast songs have these like slower, like, you know, bits where he's like, instead of like doing like a sort of a normal drum beat, he's doing the kind of tom thing. I don't know what you call that. And they all kind of have the same angsty vibe, and they all use very similar, very repetitive riffs. This kind of like semi-breakdowny, chuggy, like kind of thing. And I like, again, no song is bad, but when you put all these songs that are mid-tempo, have these kind of glurgy riffs and not much melody, and put them all together, the album starts to feel kind of like an endurance run.
It's monotonous.
Yeah, and then and of course the best songs I think are probably the first three, and then All Wrong. I like that one, but
All Wrong, yeah.
Three of the best and most different sounding songs are front loaded at the beginning of the album. So again, I feel like
that's typically how I feel about their albums, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I just feel like this would have benefited more if it had been a little more like the first album. Like, I'll compare it to like a Blink, like Enema of the State or something. With Blink, you have like some fast songs and then some slow songs, and then you'll have some kind of, you know, more intense, angry songs, and then some more kind of like chill, fun, poppy songs. You'll have some songs about, you know, like breaking up with your girlfriend, and then there's a song that's like just basically like a goofy, funny song, and then there's a song about your parents getting divorced. And here it's like all the same theme, all the same tempo, all the same style, and it just kind of, you know, everything individually is good together. It just becomes formless mush. That's my take on What You Don't See.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what I have. My two standout songs were Things I Can't See and All Wrong. The big picture to me was it feels like a continuation of the first album. It was like, did you guys like that? Here's some more. That's how I felt stylistically. There's slightly better production, but granted, I was listening with only one headphone for a lot of this because I was doing it at work, so it's just like got my left ear where and just playing it 2 or 3 times, but still with that amount of fidelity, it felt like kind of the same thing to me. And so everything else was echoing you. It's a straight line for me, but I still, with that in mind, I do think I like it better. So I have it ranked 1 with Undersoil and Dirt at 2. Sounds like you might be the reverse.
Yeah, I'm the reverse right now.
I think we might line up the rest of the way. We'll see.
The story so far, I think this is the one that I'm the most familiar with. I like this one. Again, sounds pretty similar, but I feel like they fixed the problem with the previous album, which was the lack of sort of sonic variety.
Yeah.
We've got, you know, now we have like a ballad with Phantom, which wasn't bad because it was a good kind of segue rap kind of delivery with stuff like Heavy Gloom and Nerd. I think it's just, again, I don't have my. This is gonna be a really short episode. I don't have much to say about it. It feels just like
that's how I felt when I was listening to them, man. It's like I've got my 3 sentences about how I feel about this. There's not much to dive into.
They're like the perfect 4-star band, or maybe like
it's a pretty high rating.
What's that? Well, if you're
that's a pretty high rating.
3-star like high. There's nothing they do is like absolutely like essential to me, the way that like Enema of the State is, or like Brother Sister. But nothing they do is bad. And
exactly. But they can't cut through to that next level of my heart. It's just like I'm always like, okay, sure, yeah. If you're added to the bill at this festival, I'll be there because I enjoy you. But I'm not going to buy a ticket to the Story So Far show.
Yeah,
like
I would say for me, I think they go a little bit higher than that. As in, some of their singles get to that level for me, but none of their albums do. So like if you did like a Story So Far, like greatest hits, and then like sequenced it really well, it'd probably be a 5-star album.
Yeah, oh, I'll give you that. That would be fun. I was thinking
So
about how they would sequence something like that earlier today. Actually, how they would choose those. I like this one the best so far. Um, the story so far the best so far.
yeah.
That's what they should have named the album. We finally get some harmony, and I think there's definitely you can
Hmm.
definitely tell the songwriting is more mature at this point. I think the standouts, Smile and Nerve, and I like Stalemate this time around, which had jumped out at me. The closer. That's really all I got. I think that there's like you said it well with the more the sonic variety, which we get even more of. I think in the next one,
Yeah,
which
no,
is
we definitely do. Which is
I'll launch into it as my number one. Proper dose.
Proper dose is your number one. That's fair. This is the album I feel like they do a bit of a shift, but it still feels like the story so far. It doesn't
Exactly.
feel to me like something like the difference between like the Black Parade and Three Cheers.
Danger Days. Oh, or
Or
that.
Danger Day, or yeah, that's even worse. Or like this feels to me kind of like going from Take Off Your Pants and Jacket to Untitled,
Untitled.
where it's like a little bit of a shift, maybe even less of a shift than that. Like you can tell
That's a
they
pretty
changed
stark
the
shift,
style
yeah.
some, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like, oh, they sold out, or like, wow, they're doing something
Yeah.
not good
I
at.
think, yeah, the thing that jumped out to me when I first listened to it is there's so much harmony and vocal layering that for being in his upper register, it doesn't sound as harsh. It feels much more pleasant. And so for
Yeah.
even my wife, who I've taken along on this musical journey, and she comes from like a more acoustic light rock background, and I make her
Yeah.
listen to metal and things like this. This was, much easier for her to get into, and I put it as I feel like their style has finally evolved into like what it was meant to be from the beginning. Like they've kind of nailed it at this point, in my point of view. Very catchy, very melodic, and a great mix of vibe. Like Take Me As You Please is a great addition to their catalog in my mind. I love Out of It. I'm trying to suppress a sneeze again. And the title track, no surprise here. It's the first track. They always put their good ones first. Anyways, what do you have? Similar?
Yeah, I
standouts?
really like. I think this is a pretty front-loaded album for me. But the first 6 tracks are the best, and then
I totally agree.
the last 5 are kind of forgettable. I barely remember what they sound like. There's that one that's just like a weird like. It's that like echoey vocals, and it's kind of like an indie rock like interlude kind of thing. And I was like, this is a waste of time. I think
because
Keep
the
This-
first 6 are so good that when I
Yeah.
put it on, I'm always like, yeah, and I just forget by the back end that I keep remembering. Well, the first half was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. I like Proper Dose. I really love Keep This Up and Out of It. The ballads are good. I feel like that's what was missing on the last 2. I feel like what you really needed to like this one goes a little too far on the ballads, I think, but it's like an overcorrection from the previous albums, or especially I'm probably still dealing with the after effects of what you can't see, where there's no kind of ballad in there to lighten things up, and I think their ballads are actually good. Most of these kind of bands that do heavier, anything pop punk and heavier, I tend to not like ballads because it tends to be bands not playing to their strength. And this band actually has pretty decent ballads.
Yeah.
And
Well, I feel like it's also the one where he starts to sing in his lower register, like an octave down. Real fans can check me on that. Like, he does a lot of his stuff in his higher register still, right? His shouty. But
yeah.
a more regular occurrence would be like Take Me As You Please, right? Is a good example.
Yeah.
Where it's a whole song based around that.
Yeah, definitely not screaming, not really screaming or shouting, I guess, as much on this album. It's weird. I feel like Parker Cannon's the only person in the world whose voice got like more high pitched and like feminine sounding the older he got. It's usually the opposite. Like you get older and like your voice gets like deeper and like more like shouty, and he's did the opposite. So yeah, I still think a good album. Not a perfect one. Probably would have been better as an EP for me, but
Hmm.
that's most albums for me anyway. So that's not saying much. I Want to Disappear. This is gonna break my streak for last album is the worst album. I like this album.
Yeah, it's good.
And I think the reason I liked it is because it didn't feel like they changed their style in a way to like chase pop trends that I don't like. It still felt like a Story So Far album. It was still a pop punk album. I mean, you could tell there was some. It was a little more modernized. I noticed that like the snare drum sample they used always sounded the same, and that started to get on my nerves. But but it wasn't. Again, it was slightly
Very modern.
It wasn't a ton overproduced. It didn't feel like the new 4 Year Strong in that respect. I liked the title track. I liked Letterman. I liked Big Blind. I like all the other songs. They just don't stick in my head as much. Again, I think this one is one of the albums where it was more just kind of pleasant, but all kind of blurred together, other than the few really good songs. But again, it would be something that I would definitely go back to, and I would definitely, especially go back to the few kind of standout tracks on this. So again, a very consistent discography, I'd say.
Basically, like every album, better than its predecessor, except for I put this one at number 2. So for me, yeah, as they evolve, and I guess that vocal layering and just the production, it plays a big part for me. It just is more easy listening. If that's the right genre to ascribe to them. If you're me, it's easy listening, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's a really well sequenced album. Like better than maybe other ones. They take you up and down. And so I like that. It's just like the style was good, but maybe not as good as the front half of Proper Dose for me, which I just feel an affinity toward. So all in all,
and I will say
they've got more. They've got more to come.
Yeah, on that last album, he finally got over his the habit of like overusing rhyming words in songs. That was something that it didn't bother me, but if you listen to them, they're almost like they're even worse than Sum 41, where like the songwriting is based on
Sum 41's pretty bad.
The same rhyme. It's not the same word, but just the same rhyme. So like a normal rhyme scheme would be like A A B B A A, where those represent like and then like there's just like A, and they use like every single one. And
they've been listening to too much Eminem.
Too much Eminem, yeah. That's the story on the Story So Far. That was a really quick.
That was efficient.
I mean,
not bad at all.
Again, it's a consistent band. Not much to say. There was the time that the lead singer like drop kicked a girl off the stage because she was taking a selfie. She was actually like not hurt her at all, but it's just like it's just for some reason that's really funny to me. Yeah, that's the other thing. If you don't like breakup songs, don't listen to that. That's like all these guys sing about.
Yeah.
That is the Story So Far.
Good job.
Story So Far.